Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents I Never Left, a compelling psychological suspense mystery by Mcgarvey Black, narrated by Lauren Ezzo. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Maya Angelou. Prologue. One thing I know is true. You find out who your real friends are after you're dead. My name is Quinn Roberts. Friends called me Quinny, except on the days I was a little full of myself. Then I was known as the Quintessa. The part that gets me is that everyone moved on with their lives practically the day after I was buried. That was almost a bigger surprise than dying. Almost. Attending my own funeral was strange. Over the years, I'd been to plenty of wakes. Car accidents, drugs, and cancer. Lots of cancer. But when it's yours, it's a whole different story. It's not sad, exactly. It's fascinating and kind of bizarre. Questions that haunted me when I was alive disappeared. A therapist once told me, with healing comes clarity. I guess that's true. Suddenly I know everything in the universe, except for how and why I'm dead. Did I slip in the shower and crack my skull open on the porcelain soap dish in my tub? Did I choke to death on a chicken bone because I was alone and no one was there to save me? Every other day of my life is crystal clear, except for the last one. Things are upside down and make no sense. I always figured I'd live to be 100. My grandparents on my mother's side lived into their 90s. Dying at age 44 was unexpected, and, if I might add, incredibly unfair. I wasn't done with my life, or ready to leave my husband, Alec, and my 2 children. My kids both tower over me, which isn't hard to do since I'm just over 5 feet tall. No matter what, they'll always be my babies. My daughter Hannah is only 20, and Jack, just 21. They weren't ready to lose their mother. Not yet. Growing up, my friends dreamed of big careers or traveling by train through Europe. All I wanted was to be a mother and have lots of kids. Even when I was little, I'd pretend my Barbie was a housewife and mother, cooking dinner and playing with her children. My doll was always dressed like a suburban soccer mom, acting out storylines that involved family picnics and Girl Scouts. I suppose it was odd, but it's who I am, who I was. Leaving my kids before they were fully formed bothers me the most. There were still things I wanted to teach them, like making fresh pesto from a basil plant, or how to play the ukulele. Except for the B chord, I was pretty good on the uke. Sure, I sang off-key sometimes, but always with confidence. Enthusiasm makes up for a lot of sour notes. I wanted my kids to learn that too. My life didn't turn out the way I expected. It was supposed to be amazing. Everyone had such high expectations, including me. Now, there's one question that keeps reverberating in my head. Did I do something to myself? Part 1. The Week I Died. Chapter 1. Other than the time Quinn Roberts' sink backed up, and those 2 messages she left saying she thought there was brown mold in her bathroom, Joan Hemmerly hadn't heard a peep out of her new lodger in the 6 months since she moved in. Quinn Roberts paid her rent on time and didn't make any noise. The ideal tenant. Hemmerly's son, Ronnie, did the maintenance work on his mother's rental properties since his father passed away. Her son was the one who fixed Quinn Roberts' clogged kitchen drain. He thought the lady was real nice, especially after she told him he could bring his dog, Cooper, inside, instead of having to leave him out in the car. While he snaked her drain, the woman played with his dog while she made the handyman some herbal tea. She even gave his grateful hound a dog biscuit. How come you have dog treats when you ain't got no dog? Ronnie asked. I always keep some in my coat pockets in case I run into someone walking their pooch. I love dogs, said Quinn, with a big smile. The next day, Ronnie stopped by his mother's house. You get that sink fixed? His mother asked. Yeah, it's all clear, he said. That Miss Roberts is nice, Ma. Real pretty, too. A definite MILF. What the hell is a MILF? His mother asked. Just hearing his mother use the acronym made her son laugh. It means mother I'd like to F, Ma, Ronnie said, snorting while he laughed. An expression of horror crossed his mother's face, and she shook her head. She'd never heard that one before, and wondered where the hell he got that stuff. Listen to me, she said to her 28-year-old son. You stay away from her. She's practically old enough to be your mother. That's the whole point, he said as he chuckled. She warned her son a second time and then wondered if anyone ever thought she was a MILF. Probably not, she decided. About a week later, on a dreary Saturday, the phone rang as the landlady was finishing her lunch. She tucked a loose strand of overly processed platinum blonde hair behind her ear and reached for the phone. A woman identified herself as Viv DeMarco and said she was a good friend of one of her tenants. I've been trying to reach Quinn for 5 days, Viv said. I'm standing out in front of her apartment right now and she isn't answering the door. Her Subaru is parked in the driveway. Maybe she went for a walk, Mrs. Hemmerly said, a little annoyed. What are you calling me for? Look, Viv said. I'm one of her closest friends. She always calls me back. I've left her 20 messages. Please, I drove all the way here from Avon. Something is wrong. What do you expect me to do? I can't force her to call you back. I'm her landlady, not her mother. Quinn might be hurt or unconscious, Viv said, becoming agitated. Her kids haven't heard from her in over a week. We need to get in. I can't just bust in. She talked about killing herself, Viv blurted out. Oh boy, thought the landlady. That's a game changer. She told Viv she'd be there in 10 minutes and called her son, Ronnie. He had been in the hospital the previous week, but he was back at work today painting one of her other apartments in the same neighborhood. Put on your brush, the landlady said when her son answered. We might have a problem over at Brookside with Miss Roberts' place. Meet me there in 10 minutes. When the landlady pulled up in front of the building, a heavy-set woman with tangerine-colored hair and oversized matching red-orange glasses was pacing out front. You Viv DeMarco? She shouted to the woman as she got out of her car. Viv nodded emphatically. You sure about this? Miss Roberts really talked about killing herself? Yes, Viv said, out of breath. Quinn is on all sorts of medications. She has so many pills. The landlady told Viv they'd have to wait until her son arrived before they could go in. Who knew what they were going to find, and she wanted to have a big guy with her, just in case. Ronnie wasn't the brightest bulb, but he was big and strong, just like his daddy. A minute later, her son and his friend, Jeff, both covered in white paint, came strolling over with Ronnie's terrier mix, Cooper, trailing behind. Do you have to bring that dang dog everywhere? The landlady yelled at her son. Never mind. Let's go in, and don't be getting no paint on anything. The four walked up the front steps of the house. Joan Hemmerly rang the bell to apartment B 10 times, to be certain no one was home. As the landlady unlocked the front door of the building, Viv started breathing funny. I'm sure everything will be okay, Joan said as she pushed the creaky wooden front door open and stepped into the dark green foyer. Maybe she just went on a trip somewhere, she said over her shoulder. A massive pile of Quinn Roberts' mail lay inside the hall. The landlady noticed the foyer walls were scuffed and the wooden floors needed cleaning. She made a mental note to put that on her son's punch list. Swooping down, she picked up the mound of letters, and the group proceeded to climb the stairs to the second floor. As they mounted each step, the old wooden staircase wailed under their weight. When they reached the top, the landlady knocked loudly on the door of apartment B and waited for a response. Viv, Ronnie, and Jeff stood behind her, while Cooper scratched and sniffed at the apartment door. The landlady pulled out another key, shoved it into the lock, and then pushed the door a quarter of the way open. Cooper ran in and disappeared. A putrid stink engulfed them, penetrating their clothing and every opening on their bodies. The place reeked. The landlady knew that smell. Something was dead in this place, and she secretly prayed it was just a mouse or squirrel trapped between the roof and the ceiling. That sometimes happened in old houses. "Ms. Roberts!" the landlady called out loudly in a sing-song voice through the open front door. "It's Joan Hemmerly, your landlady. I've got your friend Viv here with me. She was a little worried about you." They heard Cooper bark from one of the back rooms as they moved further into the apartment. With each step, the foul odor grew stronger, but no one acknowledged it, all fearing the worst. The place was clean, but messy, and the temperature in the apartment was oddly colder than it was outside. A kitchen chair was turned over and lying on its side. The cabinet doors were all open, as were the kitchen drawers, as if someone had been looking for something. Ronnie closed all the doors and drawers and picked up the kitchen chair and put it back in its proper place. Unwashed dishes lay submerged in dirty water in the sink. "Quinn!" Viv shouted as the group moved into the living room. "It's Viv, honey, are you here?" The persistent smell intensified the closer they got to the back hallway, making each one of them feel nauseous and gasp for clean air. "We have to check the bathroom and bedroom," the landlady said, starting to fear the worst. "Ma, you want me to go first?" Ronnie said. His mother shook her head. "Miss Roberts might be unconscious, or she might not be dressed. I'd better go first." The bedroom door was ajar, and the awful smell of putrefied fruit and something indefinable grew stronger with each step. As the landlady pushed open the bedroom door, she knew it wasn't going to be a happy ending. The room was dim because the curtains were closed, but she could still see the bedroom was in shambles. She flipped on the wall switch, and that's when she saw her. Quinn Roberts was lying on the rug next to the bed, eyes wide open. Hundreds of pills in every color of the rainbow lay scattered on the floor, looking as though someone had dropped a garbage bag filled with jelly beans. Dozens of pill bottles with caps off were strewn around her body and in all corners of the room. Cooper was contentedly licking the dead woman's feet. When the landlady saw that, she threw up right on the white bedroom rug. "Ma!" shouted Ronnie, as he and Jeff walked into the bedroom and saw his mother retching. "What's wrong?" Then he saw Quinn Roberts slumped on the floor. "Cooper, get away from her!" he shouted at the dog. "Oh my God," said Jeff, grabbing for the wall to steady himself. "I've got to get out of this room," the landlady said, hyperventilating, and walked back into the living room. Viv was standing where they had left her, frozen, clenching her hands, eyeglasses askew, tears streaming down her face. "Is Quinn dead?" Viv whispered. "Yeah, honey," the landlady said gently. "There are pills everywhere. Looks like you were right. You might not want to go in there." "Are you sure she's dead?" Viv asked again. "I'm afraid so," Joan Hemmerly said, shaking her head. "Such a waste." Jeff, Cooper, and Ronnie, with his hands full of pill bottles, came out of the bedroom. "She had so many different kinds, Ma," he said, holding up some of the empty containers. "Xanax, Wellbutrin, Lamictal, Depakote. Maybe she didn't kill herself on purpose. Maybe she got confused and took too many. She might have accidentally overdosed." "We've got to call the police," the landlady said, feeling a bead of sweat trickle down her back. "What am I going to tell her family?" said Viv. They all stood silently in the living room for a moment. Viv started to sob as she told them that Quinn was only 44 and had 2 kids in college. "She was so young," said the landlady. "It's awful, her kids losing their mother like this." She was about to call 911 when one of her other tenants from downstairs, Mr. Jenkins, walked in through the open apartment door. "What's going on here?" he asked. "It reeks out here like a landfill on a hot Sunday in August." "Someone died," the landlady said flatly. "The woman who lived here committed suicide." "Quinn? She's dead?" he said. "She always smiled at me when she was getting her mail. Sometimes we'd talk for a few minutes about the weather or the news. She told me she was getting divorced. Where is she?" Ronnie cocked his head towards the bedroom door. With that, the old man walked towards it. "I wouldn't go in there if I were you, Mr. Jenkins," the landlady called out. "I want to see her," said the old man. "I want to say goodbye." A minute later, he came back ashen and with tears in his eyes. "I straightened her arms out so she'd be more comfortable and covered her up with a blanket so she would be warm," he said. "She used to say she was always cold in this place." It was time. The landlady punched 911 into her phone while she said a little prayer for Quinn Roberts' soul. Chapter 2. Balancing a coffee in one hand and a bacon, egg, and cheese in the other, 51-year-old Detective John McQuillan, known around the station as McHugh, nearly had a car accident when the dispatcher's announcement crackled over his car radio. At first, he thought it was only a false alarm, another cat up a tree, until he heard that one word. Suicide. "Call from the Glades, female, aged 44, landlord ID, possible suicide," said the female voice. He took a few sips of his tasteless, lukewarm coffee and devoured the remainder of the greasy sandwich. He needed to soak up all the beer he'd consumed the night before at his brother's 50th. The last round had been his idea, and a colossal mistake, and now he was paying for it. The taste of the salty meat, combined with the scrambled and cheddar, sent calming and happy signals to his brain, and he sighed with relief. 5 minutes later, belly full, McQuillan put the flashing light on top of his unmarked car and headed to the Glades, the high-end section of Newbridge, and usually the quietest part of town. Nothing happened in that neighborhood, good or bad. It was painfully, peacefully, dull. Most of the big old Victorian homes in the area had been converted into 2- and 3-family rental apartments, inhabited mainly by professionals who worked downtown or over in Rochester. The detective steered his vehicle up Brookside Drive and stopped in front of number 1404. An empty black and white SUV with its light bar on top, still flashing, sat parked across the street. The front door of the police car was ajar, and already attracting a crowd. A middle-aged, heavy-set woman wearing oversized glasses waved her arms frantically. Her face was almost as red as her flaming hot Cheetos-colored hair. Visible tear tracks mixed with mascara streaked down her cheeks. "Quinn's dead!" shouted the redhead. "Are you the person who called?" said McQuillan to the agitated woman. "It was the landlady who called. I'm Quinn's friend," she sobbed. "She's dead! I can't believe it! I drove over here from Avon. I knew something was wrong." "Why did you think that?" "A couple of months ago, Quinn told me she wanted to kill herself. When she didn't call me back this week, I got worried," she said, her voice catching. "The landlady said there were hundreds of pills on the floor around her body." "Did Miss Roberts use drugs?" "Quinn wasn't into that. Her drug of choice was margaritas," said Viv, sniffling. "The last time we talked, she was better, but when I didn't hear back from her all week, I got scared. She said once that she wanted to buy a gun." "What did she want the gun for?" "She said she wanted to blow her head off," Viv said, crying softly. "I thought she was just being a drama queen. She could be like that sometimes. We used to call her the Quintessa." The detective walked towards the entrance of the building and immediately noticed something was wrong. "Where's that goddamn yellow tape?" he muttered to himself. He pushed open the front door, and the stench hit him hard. It was unmistakable. Death. Inside the foyer, civilians swarmed like ants. Upstairs, downstairs, on the stairs. Several older men sidestepped the detective as he ascended the steps. "Is there a police officer here?" McQuillan shouted out to no one in particular. On the second level, an older woman with platinum blonde hair pinned up on top of her head leaned over the dark wooden railing. "I own this building," she hollered. "I'm the one who called. Your other officer is up here." The detective continued wearily up the creaky steps. "It's so sad. That poor woman," the landlady wailed as the detective got closer. "I'll never be able to rent this apartment when people find out someone killed herself in here." McQuillan reached the top step out of breath and promised himself he'd reinstate his expired gym membership. "It's going to take me weeks to get this place cleaned up," said the landlady, as she pushed open the front door of Quinn Roberts' apartment. "I don't know how I'm going to get that smell out of here." Chapter 3. 3 middle-aged men, deep in animated conversation, barely noticed McQuillan when he entered the vestibule. Officer Yancey stood a few feet behind them, taking a statement from a white-haired man. "What the hell is going on here, Yancey?" said McQuillan angrily as he pulled the young cop aside. "Who are all these civilians, and why are they in the middle of my crime scene? It's like Grand Central Station at rush hour in here, and where's the fucking barricade tape? I thought I had a roll in my trunk, but I guess I didn't. I've been trying to get everyone out, McHugh, but—" Yancey started. Out of the corner of his eye, McQuillan saw a dog dart through the living room, sniffing and poking its nose into every crevice. "This is an active crime scene, you idiot," the detective barked, unconcerned that he might be overheard. "Why is there a goddamn dog in here?" "That's my son's dog," the landlady interjected, pointing to a young guy in painter's clothes outside the front door. "I told him to come over in case there was a problem." 2 additional cops in uniform arrived just as McQuillan addressed the crowd. "Anyone not a member of law enforcement, leave the building immediately." There was some grumbling as one of the uniformed officers herded the nosy neighbors out. When the floor was cleared, McQuillan walked towards the back. The minute he crossed the living room threshold, the stench hit him hard. For the second time that day, his stomach did a flip, and he once again regretted his choices from the night before. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a tiny jar of Vicks Vapo Rub, and put a dab under his nose to camouflage the overpowering smell. Nearing the back hall, he braced himself. He'd seen dead bodies before. Some cops took it in their stride. Corpses were part of the job. Not a big deal. For McQuillan, every single time was awful. He was always mindful that the victim wasn't just a lifeless body. Somebody once loved them. Sometimes they looked like they were only sleeping, but other times it was gut-wrenching. It was especially bad if they were young. The condition of a body depended on a couple of things: how long before it was found, and the weather. Natural chemical decomposition mixed with heat and humidity made a potent combination. Together, they did terrible things to human flesh. He took a deep breath and held it while he turned the knob on the bedroom door and opened it. Scanning the contents of the room, he was forced to inhale again, and the putrid stink made him cough. The dead woman was on the floor next to the bed, covered by a white knit blanket. Her shoulder-length black hair cascaded around her face, obscuring most of it. He made a mental note of the position of the body. It struck him as odd. Hundreds of pills and dozens of prescription bottles littered the floor. His nose and 25 years on the beat told him she'd been dead for a few days. He pulled out his little black book and a pen and drank in the scene. It was an ordinary woman's bedroom, and it was a mess. Bottles tipped over, magazines, newspapers, and mail scattered about the room. The windows were shut tight, curtains and blinds akimbo. There were photographs in frames, maybe of her kids, in every corner of the room. The top of the white dresser was covered with cosmetics, jewelry, hairbrushes, and other assorted girl junk. Shoes and clothes were strewn across the floor. A clear liquid pooled on the wood floor in the corner of the room. McQuillan dipped his finger into it and smelled his hand. The all-encompassing odor already in the room made it difficult for him to tell what it was. He guessed it might be urine. A small pile of vomit lay on the white rug near the body. He wondered if the dead woman puked after she took a handful of pills. Maybe it wasn't suicide, he thought. It could have been an accidental overdose. He hoped that was what it was, for her family's sake. He needed some fresh air pronto, and went back into the living room to fill his lungs. A police tech team was bagging samples while the photographer snapped pictures. "You called it a suicide," McQuillan said to the landlady, who was still standing by the front door. "Her friend told me my tenant threatened to kill herself," said the landlady. "That's the only reason I came over here. I don't barge in on my tenants. When you pay Joan Hemmerly your rent, you get your privacy. Everything gets labeled and bagged," he shouted over the landlady's shoulder to one of the lab technicians. "Make sure you get a sample of that liquid on the floor in the bedroom and the puke on the rug." McQuillan scratched his ears as Yancey and another uniformed cop approached. "I've been doing this a long time," he said to the two young cops. "This place is hinky. How many people were in here today? Was anything moved?" Yancey began to stammer. "Well," he said, squirming as he read from his notebook. "There were the landlady, her son, the son's friend, the dog, the victim's friend, Miss DeMarco, the downstairs neighbors, Mr. Jenkins, and a Mr. and Mrs. Rubin. Also a middle-aged couple who lives down the street, and 3 men who live next door stopped in. The mailman came in to deliver mail, but only for a minute." McQuillan felt his blood pressure rise. His head started to ache as if someone had jammed an ice pick in his skull above his right eye. "See that old guy over there?" Yancey said, oblivious to the effect his comments were having on the older detective. "He might have gone into the bedroom and put a blanket over the victim's body. He also might have moved her arms a little." McQuillan, mouth open, stared in disbelief at the incompetence of the young officer. "It seemed like a clear case of suicide, McHugh, so I wasn't that concerned about people being in here," said Yancey. "You weren't that concerned?" McQuillan said, his volume increasing. "It's not your fucking job to decide that. Your only job was to secure this goddamn apartment and wait for me. I didn't think I needed to. It's a crime scene, Yancey, until I say it isn't," said McQuillan, peering out the window at the flashing police car below. "And turn your goddamn lights off when you get out of your car. Half of Monroe County is standing outside because of your vehicle." Yancey's face turned bright red, and he abruptly turned and left the apartment. McQuillan pushed Yancey's monumental screw-up out of his mind in order to focus on the situation at hand. Given the relative orderliness of the home, the vast number of pills, and all the corroborating statements, McQuillan conceded it looked like a suicide. Still, he had to be sure. Never assume anything, he reminded himself. Assumptions are for amateurs. He checked around for signs of a forced entry and found everything secured. An attendant wheeled a gurney through the living room while 2 other techs prepared to bag the body. The photographer took a few final shots as a red-faced Yancey returned to the scene. "The first rule of police work," McQuillan said, leaning over to the young officer. "Secure the premises." Yancey nodded wearily, tired of McQuillan's endless lecture. The detective knew the kid was pissed off, but he didn't care. He wasn't running a kindergarten. and he couldn't tolerate stupid, lazy, or sloppy. Yancey had been guilty of all three.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?